Welcome to Influential Entrepreneurs, bringing you interviews with elite business leaders and experts, sharing tips and strategies for elevating your business to the next level. Here's your host, Mike Saunders.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Influential Entrepreneurs. This is Mike Saunders, the Authority Positioning Coach. Today we have with us Bryan Daly, who's the founder of New Life Financial Alliance and a fee-based fiduciary financial planner, and we'll be discussing Social Security claiming options. Bryan, welcome to the program.
Hey, Mike, great to be here.
Hey, I'm excited to talk about this because I know this is a relevant topic no matter what your age is, because I think that you would probably agree that Social Security is one of those last kind of cherry on top of a retirement plan that people tend to think about, but in reality, it is something that should be thought about well ahead of retirement so that you are making the right plan. So give us a little bit of your background of approach when you work with your clients, and then we'll jump into some of the considerations they should keep in mind for Social Security.
Certainly. Thank you, Mike. You know, when I ask folks, I say, what is your largest asset? Is it your pension, your 401k, your home? Many people don't consider their Social Security benefit to be, of course, it's an income stream, but it really could be looked at as an asset. And for many people, it's one of their largest assets. In some cases, it is their largest asset. So to just kind of off the cuff make decisions, the coffee shop consultant that says, just do this or do that or whatever without doing an analysis to see what fits your situation, it can be a big mistake.
Yeah, and I love that analogy of an asset, and it really is something where typically you think about, well, an asset you've got to work for, well, you did your whole career. So let's make sure that that asset is well planned out, well thought of, and protected. So what are some of the things you advise your clients on when it comes to maximizing their Social Security income?
Well, the one of the first things I like to do is an analysis. Actually, before we even do that, as you said, prior to claiming, is to go back and review your Social Security work history. There's errors sometimes that are found in there, and sometimes those errors can be corrected. So if you see a pattern of 0 years income or income that's just something doesn't look right, it could be an error, and you might not be getting full credit for your work history. So that's the first thing I do is have folks set up through the Social Security Gov website, get into their account, take a look at their work history, and see what their benefits are, and look for. The first thing is to look for any obvious errors in their history.
Yeah, that would be a great first step, and I've not ever thought of that before because you just assume that, the report is what the report is, but, maybe you don't have exact specific numbers like, back in 1987, my income was, but you can look at a glance and go, hey, income, hey, hold up. Why did it spike down so low that particular year? So that's a really good point about looking for those errors. What else? What's another consideration that you advise your clients on?
Well, and you have to factor in the whole picture because, the coffee shop consultant will tell you, you walk into the coffee shop and ask for advice. The 3 or 4 wise men sitting around the coffee table at the Dunkin' Donuts. They'll tell you, take your Social Security as soon as you can because it's going to run out of money. Yeah. Well, it's not going to run out of money.
They've been saying that for 30 years.
Yeah. Now, benefits may be reduced and there may be some changes to it, and benefits will be delayed for future claims and all that other stuff. However, taking the Social Security early may not be the best choice because you effectively are taking reduced benefits right out of the gate. Yeah. And depending on how long you think you will live, based on longevity, life experience, family history, that sort of thing, you might be making a bad bet. But that's sort of the first thing. The second is it needs to be considered in the total picture, because the total picture could be, and when I say the total picture, it's not just income and income streams. It also has to take into consideration taxes as well. and what other incomes you're going to be drawing from. So, for instance, someone may be able to delay taking Social Security, withdraw from qualified plans, and be able to maximize their Social Security benefit and reduce their tax and something called provisional tax, or the tax torpedo that's inside Social Security. A lot of people don't even know what that tax torpedo is. Basically, currently, if your income married filing jointly, your income goes over $44,000, you're paying 85 cents on the dollar in taxes, which means every additional dollar, $44,000 in income, gets taxed like $1.85. So there are ways that you can reduce, minimize, eliminate the provisional tax in the future just by having a plan for taking that income. So that's why I say it has to be taken in the total picture. It can't just be, when should I take it? The other, of course, is if you have a working spouse, depends, or spousal benefits, maybe you should claim one early and one later, or, there's then you start to get into a bunch of other optional alternatives as well.
Yeah. I want to get back to that tax torpedo and just ask a question, because it is a fact and it will happen. But if you were to have made some plans ahead of time and you knew about this tax torpedo number, and I'm sure the number changes, 40,000, 44, and it'll kind of move a little bit. But am I correct in thinking this? If I was approaching retirement age and thinking, when should I claim, but I knew that I was going to work part-time, or I knew I was doing some consulting, and I wanted to quit my full-time job because I'm tired of the grind, but I knew I wanted to consult 3 days a week, and my income might be above that threshold. Well, now I might not want to claim right this minute. Might want to wait until I'm done with that consulting time frame, year, 2, 5 years, whatever. Am I thinking correctly that way?
Absolutely. So there are a lot of different factors. When looking at it as well, because you can eliminate, in many cases we do minimize or reduce that tax torpedo. So depending on what your outlook is for taxes in the future, most people think taxes are going to be higher. Add that provisional income and that to your taxes now, and tax your Social Security benefit. And, before you know it, you're in a 40, someone in a 30% tax bracket's in a 40+% tax bracket just by getting hit with that tax torpedo. That means that people run out of money a lot sooner, a lot quicker. So it's not one size fits all.
Yeah. If you could plan ahead and you could not have that big tax hit because you're making some money. Well, now if you've already claimed, then that's one thing. But I think that this kind of puts a pin on the fact that you can't just figure it out on your own. You should sit down with someone to say, let's look at your whole picture. Let's make sure that everything moving forward is the way it needs to be. And you, Bryan, would be asking some people like, well, what are your plans about? And let's talk about your spouse. So I think that's a really big thing to keep in mind. So thank you for bringing up tax torpedo. And so now let's talk through a little bit of other things about spouse and health and some of the other things that might mean, you know what, I might want to claim a little bit early. I know the tax torpedo, but our health really is such that we need the money now. Or my spouse, what are some of those factors?
Yeah, well, if you have a spouse, generally the most optimal solution is to delay the largest breadwinner, the largest income earners, to full retirement age. Yeah. But that's not always possible, right? As you just said, and you also have to factor in survivor benefits, and what will your survivor receive after you pass? So those are other, and can you afford that, and if you can't, plan for it.
100%. There's something else we've touched on, but we've not really said the word, but irrevocable. So am I correct in thinking that if you hit a certain age and go, okay, I'm going to set up my benefits, and then a few years later, something changes where you go, oh, well, now I want to too bad. You've claimed and you're in. So you need to know up front. So how important is that aspect of being irrevocable?
It's really important.
Yeah.
It can't be overstated. There are some cases where you could suspend, but the old file and suspend is gone. So you're really limited in your choices. Once you make the elections, those elections are forever, and in most cases. And the most surprising thing that most people don't know is Social Security is not allowed to give you any advice on what you should be doing. Now, they may be able to help you fill out the forms, but they're not going to tell you what you could do or should do or what's the best option for you. By law, they're not allowed to tell you, what would be the best option for you. Most people are surprised by that. They figure, well, I just go down to the Social Security office and talk to the folks there, and I'll get all my questions answered. And that's not the solution or the answer either.
Big point, because I think that's what a lot of people feel like. Oh, well, I can go to their website. They've got a lot of information. Or I can go down to, and they will answer questions, but they will not know, oh, well, you said that you had this situation, and have you considered? They can't and they won't. So that's a big point, and that makes me think of another question. How about the other huge helper in the room? You've mentioned, coffee shop advisors. How about advisor Google? A lot of people think, oh, I'll just go to Google and I'll figure it all out, and here's when I should claim. Well, there's a lot of conflicting information out there, right?
Yeah, and I say, when you make mistakes with money, usually the way it works is when you make a mistake with money, it costs you money. Yeah. And you usually don't find out until after it costs you money. And going back to what we just said, if you're making irrevocable decisions, it's too late. You kind of made the choice, coulda, woulda, shoulda, if they had other advice. Now, there's a lot of great information out on the internet. There's a lot of great information on Google. There's also a lot of misinformation, old information, needs to be updated information. You could pretty much Google just about anything and find both sides or many sides of the argument. And that's the value, Mike, of working with a professional, someone that's going to really analyze and custom tailor. As I said before, it's not a one-size-fits-all. It really needs to be a custom plan.
Yeah, that's a really huge point, and I think that people really need to realize this, which is, yes, you might find some really authoritative documents out there online or Social Security Administration's website, and it might seem like it would fit, but what are you missing? What are you letting fall through the cracks? And I've heard some people say, oh, well, one time I had a client that they told me just in conversation, just in passing, they didn't even think it was a big thing, something about their family situation, like, oh, well, we have care of our disabled grandchild, something like that. Well, that might open up the doors for all kinds of potential opportunity that could help them out. So a form or an online checklist just doesn't cut it, and that's a big consideration.
Yeah, absolutely. In the Social Security Administration is not allowed to coordinate your benefits with any other outside assets or outside considerations. So even when you do go into the office, they're not going to factor in maybe other benefits that you're getting elsewhere, other income, other assets, and like you said, other factors, family members and their situations as well.
So let's wrap up with this thought. I know that people could hear that and go, okay, well, I know I can't go to Social Security for all my detailed information, and I can look at Google, but let's take it with a grain of salt. So I'm going to go to that financial professional. Well, without naming names or companies, there are a lot of companies out there that do financial advice, but you really want to work with one that has some specialized knowledge in Social Security, because it's almost, in my opinion, the point of going to a general practitioner doctor when you need some really, really high-end specialist care, right?
Yeah, absolutely. In going into retirement, 5 years prior and 5 years into retirement is really the retirement red zone. So decisions that you make then are so key and so important because they influence everything that happens for the rest of your life. And and when we look at that retirement red zone, the rules of decumulation or distribution, or some say coming down the mountain, all the rules change in retirement. And so if you're not necessarily working with someone who has specialized knowledge and skills in those areas, and go dive a little bit deeper, someone who's going to look, Mike, retirement's really simple. It really comes down to two things. Number one is you need to have enough income to meet all your needs and pay all your bills. End of story, right?
Yeah.
And number two is to take all the risks off the table. All the risks in retirement off the table. And in retirement, we're faced with all sorts of risks. Inflation, taxation, legislation, health risks. And one of the biggest risks of all is longevity risk. What if I live too long and run out of money? So you really have to work with someone who's going to specialize in taking those risks all off the table.
100%. Well, Bryan, I know that that's something you guys specialize in. So what's the best way that someone can reach out, connect with you, and get some of these consultations in place to see if they are positioned the best way for their retirement?
Well, my website is newlifefinancialalliance.com. My contact information is there. And we're going to be coming out with a book here soon. We'll have information on that website for the Social Security book as well.
Excellent. Well, Bryan, thank you so much for coming on today. It was really a great pleasure talking with you.
Well, thank you, Mike. I appreciate it. Good to talk with you.
You've been listening to Influential Entrepreneurs with Mike Saunders. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit www.influentialentrepreneursradio.com.